What percentage of people do you think are suffering here in Cuba?
La mayoría. La mayoría.
What's your thoughts on communism? ¿Qué piensas de comunismo?
De lo más malo que ha existido en la vida ha sido el comunismo. Porque realmente ninguno es comunista.
None of the gas stations are even in operation right now because there's quite literally no gas.
And we stand out like sore thumbs here, so they're wondering why we're here with cameras, interviewing people. They want to know what's happening and what people are saying. That's why people are not talking to us much.
They're asking why are we trying to leave the hotel early.
They want to talk to us.
Cuba right now is facing one of the largest humanitarian crises in the world. Cuba's government is a one-party communist-ruled country, and they are facing massive food shortages, daily blackouts, and a lack of medicine. And right now, a U.S. blockade is restricting oil and gas from coming inside of the country. With communism and socialism on the rise in the West, I wanted to see what life in communism is really like firsthand, as Cuba has been living underneath communism for over 60 years. Upon arrival, I completed all required documents and had received a visa for journalistic activity. However, once I landed, all my camera gear was seized, and within 24 hours, I was planning my escape out of Cuba after their intelligence followed me all day and a 2-star general came searching for me at the hotel. Now let's go see the reality of Cuba and eventually plan our escape out of Cuba. Where are the people at? ¿Dónde está la gente? No hay nadie aquí en la calle, no hay nadie aquí en estas casas. ¿Dónde está la gente?
The problem is that there's no gasoline. It's not easy to move. Anyway, we have a lot of limitation for work.
None of the gas stations are even in operation right now because there's quite literally no gas. When the United States captured Maduro, their main supplier of gas and oil was shut off. So the country right now has hardly any gas, and if you do want to get gas, you have to wait in a line from the government. The guy that we're in our taxi with right now, he said his position to get gas is $1,200 in line, and gas from the government costs around $1, but gas, if you were to buy it on the black market, costs $10 per liter. That's $40 per gallon if you were to buy gas here in Cuba. Before they captured Maduro, was there gasoline in the gas stations?
Always. It was easy. Nowadays it's really bad. But it was easy to get gasoline.
And for you,
every day you can go to the gasoline station and buy it normally. It was normal. But nowadays, it's really bad.
¿Y cómo está sobreviviendo la gente aquí en Cuba?
Just imagine the reality of it. With 1,000 sacrifices and 1,000 daily struggles, the average Cuban citizen is the one really going through absolute hell here in this country.
It's so interesting being here in Cuba because everything is just like empty. It's almost very like North Korea-like. When you come into a massive plaza, there's not even cars. Like, listen, right now you can't even hear a car in sight. And they have all of this other portraits of people and past leaders of Cuba, yet there's hardly anyone even here. It's very strange here. They're saying that this is even more quiet than during COVID, during the pandemic. Less people are even leaving the streets than during the pandemic. That's how bad the crisis is right now. And the Cuban people simply just don't have money, and they also just do not have the resources like gasoline to be able to go out and continue their normal lives right now. We headed to a nearby hospital, and from this moment on, we noticed we were being followed by Cuban police and their intelligence. After the word got out, I was asking people about communism. Inside of a communist country, there's no such thing as freedom of speech or freedom of the press. In fact, if you speak out against the current regime or against communism, your neighbor can then report you to an area inside of the neighborhood where the government or the police will then come after you, and you have the risk of being imprisoned for speaking out against the regime. And what's the reality of living inside of communism? ¿Qué es la realidad de vivir en comunismo?
Son presidentes todos, son jefes todos.
El gobierno.
Sí, así que funciona.
Hay mucha gente que está muriendo por el comunismo.
Por eso mismo, porque no hay pastillas, no hay nada para darle a la gente.
And what would be your last message to the people about living life in communism?
Bueno, el último mensaje que daré es que lo más malo que hay aquí en Cuba es el comunismo, que viven todo en comunismo. Eso es lo más malo que hay aquí en Cuba ahora mismo, el comunismo.
¿Y qué piensa ahora de su propio presidente Canal?
Bueno, yo pienso que no tiene la capacidad para ser presidente, porque nos estamos muriendo de hambre. Si no trabajamos, nos morimos de hambre.
And do you believe that it's the responsibility of the government to give food to the people? ¿Crees que es la responsabilidad del gobierno para dar comida a la gente?
Sí. Porque son los jefes, tienen que abastecer al pueblo.
¿Qué piensa de lo que está haciendo Donald Trump con el aceite y con la gasolina, como no está dejando gasolina para entrar? See, like people are very scared to answer and even give questions and responses here because of communism, and because when you say communism, when they say that they control the food or they control the jobs, they also control the freedom of press here. So a lot of people aren't used to talking on camera. And ¿qué piensa eso de
Que se cinga días Canel. Que se cinga días Canel.
Security had noticed that two random individuals had appeared while we were doing these interviews, and they decided it was time to leave. And what happened while we were conducting some of those interviews?
Right now, while we were finishing one of the interviews, some undercover cops, you could just tell they're undercover cops. They came out of nowhere. They got on better used phones than the average person here, and they were right away communicating with each other, and they were trying to corner us out, so that's why we had to get out of there.
So you do have government spies going around making sure that certain things aren't said.
Of course, and we stand out like sore thumbs here, so they're wondering why we're here with cameras, interviewing people. They want to know what's happening and what people are saying. That's why people are not talking to us much.
And it's also why you don't ever see any videos come out of Cuba.
That's 100% why you don't see videos come out of Cuba. It's very limited, the videos that you see come out of Cuba, because they control everything.
We headed into downtown Havana with the hopes that we'd shake off the two spies that were telling us. And I want you to notice the pure decay here. The streets and the buildings look like they're about to fall apart, and this is due to 50 years of no innovation inside of a communist country. We then went into one of the local markets to exchange some cash for some Cuban pesos. And here in Cuba, their inflation has hit really hard here, so their peso does not really go that far, so the dollar does go a lot farther here. In fact, the average salary of someone here for the month is $14 USD. So right now we're exchanging here on the streets of Cuba, and you get a lot better price for your dollar versus if you were to do it at the airport here in Cuba. How would you say life is here in Cuba?
La situación está mala.
What do you think is going to happen with the future of Cuba?
Ustedes que vengan para acá.
¿Crees que los Estados Unidos van a tomar Cuba?
Claro que sí. Claro, tú, ven para acá.
¿Y te gustaría que los Estados Unidos toman Cuba?
Claro que sí.
¿Y por qué?
Porque que vengan, esto aquí está malo. Claro, para trabajar con ustedes.
So what's your opinion about communism?
El comunismo es malo.
And why is it bad? ¿Por qué está mal?
Porque está malo, no hay comida aquí.
¿Qué fue el cambio después de Maduro fue capturado?
No me ataques.
No. Yeah, they can't talk about it. It's kind of interesting to asking about these political situations that you could talk about in the United States completely freely, but a lot of people are timid, and you have to respect that because you don't want to put them in a bad situation. But people are very timid to talk about stuff politically here in the streets of Cuba. I mean, look at this one. You have coming down the street right here. This is just normal here in Cuba. It's kind of weird. The reason for the old cars here in Cuba is because in 1959 is when communism took effect, and the United States then later put an embargo on Cuba, which stopped new companies from working with Cuba. So all they had left was cars from the 1950s and earlier. Innovation tends not to take place in communism because there's no incentive for an entrepreneur to go out and create something, because he'll receive no benefit because the state or the country, the government, controls what goes in and out, and also how much money you take from that underneath communism. So it completely kills entrepreneurship, which then kills innovation, and then you come up with a stagnant society like this one here in Cuba, where they have not developed any much further than since around the 1950s. All these buildings here are still standing from the 1950s, but they have not innovated, or there's nothing new here inside of this country. It's actually kind of sad to see. This man right here will explain just how dangerous it is to speak out against communism inside of a communist country. How's life in communism? ¿Qué es la realidad? What's the reality of it?
El comunismo, ya. Esa parte ahí vaya, no te puedo contestar esa parte porque no sé qué decirte.
La gente aquí, the people here, no pueden hablar sobre el comunismo o hablar en contra del gobierno.
Aquí tú hablas en contra del comunismo y te meten preso. Te desaparecen. Lo que pasa es que la gente tiene miedo a hablar, ¿me entiendes? Pero aquí tú hablas y te desapareces.
So if you speak bad about communism here in Cuba, you'll be taken to prison and you'll just disappear.
Te pueden meter días preso, ¿me entiendes? Te dan golpe y todo.
¿Es imposible para hablar sobre el comunismo?
No tengo nada que decir.
Okay. Yeah, this is what's super interesting about talking about communism. They cannot speak bad about communism here inside of Cuba. And because of the lack of oil inside the country, there's constant blackouts that are taking place each and every single day inside of Cuba. It's even affecting the education of the children. In fact, right now, inside of Cuba, the main university, the university that Fidel Castro attended, is currently shut down. And so right now, the children and the university students of Cuba are having a hard time getting education. This is the National University of Cuba. I mean, this is a huge stadium they have. Tons of seats, a track, and a football pitch, but it's all just has not been maintained whatsoever. Just the vents are all rusting and eroding. ¿Qué tal la vida aquí en Cuba? How's life here in Cuba?
Más o menos, no tan bien. Hay problemas de transporte y eso, pero...
What would you say the biggest problem is? ¿Qué diría que es el problema más grande para un joven?
El problema grande que hay en Cuba aquí es la luz.
¿Cuántas veces al día se cortan la luz? How many times a day do they cut out the lights?
Casi todos los días, de cualquier hora. A cualquier hora.
Yeah, how do you live through that as a young child? ¿Cómo se vive eso mientras que está un joven?
No muy bien. El tema de la luz, además del estudio y todo. Muy bien.
So the lights are affecting your entire life. Entonces los luces están afectando toda tu vida.
Cuando viene, a veces no viene más hasta por la mañana, o la quitan general en Cuba entera. Y bueno.
We left the university and did the most touristy thing we could do, and that was to hop into a 1950 Chevrolet and tour the city of Havana with one of the local guides. We did this in the hopes that we would have less people following us. However, it just brought even more attention to us when we got back to the hotel. And how come here you guys still use old cars from the 1950s?
Porque estos son coches tradicionales antes del triunfo de la revolución. Coches del 50, del 59 y quedó de patrimonio de la humanidad y trabajamos para una agencia del gobierno.
So you guys work for the government still?
Del gobierno. Trabajamos para el gobierno.
And this is kind of a random question, but do you know what a Tesla is? ¿Sabe qué es una Tesla?
No.
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 ¿Nunca he escuchado de un auto que se llama un Tesla?
No.
No. BMW?
Tampoco.
Right now in Poly Market, there's a 45% chance that there's a clash between the U.S. military and the Cuban military. Do you think there will be a clash with the two militaries in 2026?
Bueno, eso es lo que pensamos muchos cubanos. Eso es lo que pensamos muchos cubanos porque queremos la mejoría de nuestro país. Para los niños en las escuelas, los hospitales, las casas, los barrios humildes, que tengan una mejoría, ¿me entiendes?
So do you think it would be good if there was some intervention between the two militaries?
Sí, pienso que sí. Pienso que sí. Nosotros lo que queremos es tener la tranquilidad.
¿Qué piensa pasaría? What do you think would happen in that war?
Bueno, no pienso que sea una guerra en total. Pienso que sea una mejoría para el pueblo. Para el pueblo, que es lo que queremos, una mejoría.
Because what's happened here in Cuba has not been good for the general public.
No está pasando bien. No está pasando, no la estamos pasando bien. No es normal que tengamos muchos problemas económicos.
And what do the people of Cuba think about Donald Trump and Marco Rubio?
Bueno, no te puedo decir exactamente qué piensan las personas porque cada cual tiene sus distintos pensamientos. Pero bueno, si es para bien para el pueblo y para nosotros los cubanos, que para bien sea.
Do you think it's necessary for change to happen here in Cuba? ¿Cree que es necesario que hay cambios aquí?
Sí, pienso que sí. Pienso que sí, muchos años, no sé, y todo el pueblo quiere que cambie la cosa.
And what would you say the reality of communism is?
Bueno, la realidad del comunismo, unos sí, otros no. Y pienso que el comunismo sea todos iguales. No unos sí y otros no. Tiene que ser todo parejo.
And it's not like that. No, es así.
Y no es así.
Right now they say 7 out of 10 people here in Cuba are going without their necessary meals here. Would you say that's true?
Es real, es real. Ahora mismo tenemos muchos problemas con el alimento. El aceite, el arroz, los frijoles, la carne, el pollo. Muchos problemas. Todo se está yendo para las pymes y todo el mundo no tiene la misma posibilidad de presupuesto para poder comprar los alimentos.
And was this happening before the blockade or is this just now happening?
Sí, pienso que sí.
So it's not new that this is happening?
No es nuevo.
For how many years have the people of Cuba been suffering?
Bueno, pienso que hace rato ya, pienso que hace tiempo ya que el pueblo está sufriendo por el tema del alimento y muchas cosas que el pueblo sufre, que no se expresa porque tenemos miedo de la libertad de expresión. Porque algunas veces podemos expresar algo que no nos puedan entender y nos perjudica, ¿me entiendes? Por eso es que hay muchas personas que no hablan.
And that's something I have noticed when we have been talking to people is a lot of people are scared to talk about the current situation here in Cuba because of communism, essentially.
Hay muchas personas que no quieren expresar lo que sienten porque tienen miedo a cualquier tipo de situación, a que puedan ir presos, a que le puedan quitar las casas, a muchas cosas como ha pasado, que hay personas que han expresado lo que sienten y han tenido problemas con el gobierno.
And how much does it cost right now for gas?
Ahora tenemos $10 un litro de gasolina y la estamos comprando en mercado negro.
And how much?
Ahora mira, no hay gasolina en ningún cupe. Por eso es que ha subido los impuestos y ha subido todo por el tema del petróleo y la gasolina.
What would be your message to all the people in the world about what's actually happening here in Cuba?
Queremos una mejoría, necesitamos una mejoría para que el pueblo esté bien.
And this is where things began to get really weird. As we arrived back to the hotel, this man began following us. He was all alone and he kept moving as we moved. Security noticed him telling us. We played it cool and left the hotel a few hours later, and after one interview on the street, we caught the web of spies following and monitoring everything I was doing as this man exposed the raw reality of Cuba unfiltered.
What happens at nighttime here in Cuba?
¿Qué
pasa aquí en la noche?
En la noche tú la ves vacía, que no hay nada. No hay nada.
There's nothing.
No hay diversión, no hay nada, no hay luz, no hay agua, no hay nada. No hay comida, no hay medicamentos, no hay nada. Yo no sé hasta cuándo vamos a seguir así.
Would you like the United States to come in and have military intervention here?
Claro, para salir de esta situación. Por supuesto. Para salir de esta historia.
What is the situation right now?
Que no hay nada. No tenemos luz, no tenemos comida, no tenemos medicamentos. No tenemos la primera necesidad de un hospital. No hay nada, no tenemos nada. No hay un ser humano que pueda vivir así. Es demasiado.
And what would be your message to the rest of the world about the realities of what's happening here in Cuba? ¿Cuál sería su mensaje a todo el mundo de la realidad de lo que está pasando aquí en Cuba?
Te estoy diciendo cuál es la verdad. El que te diga algo que no sea lo que yo te estoy diciendo es porque tiene miedo. Pero es lo que está pasando todo el mundo. Mira esa vieja a mí. ¿Dónde está? Con el perro pidiendo comida. Mírala ahí. A todo el mundo. Que no tiene acá. Mírala ahí.
Sí, lo veo.
Mírala ahí. Mira. Sí. Ven, mírala ahí. Pregúntale ahí.
Hola, señora.
Explícale todo lo que tú estás pasando.
No, pero no sin video.
Sí, la gente no quiere. The people do not want to be
Pero
on video.
ese es el problema, que la gente no quiere en video. Porque la meten presa. Ese es el problema. El problema es que nos meten presos cuando salgan por video. Si ahora tú publicas ese video, si tú publicas ese video, yo voy preso.
Vamos preso.
Preso. Vamos por eso.
What's your thoughts on communism? ¿Qué piensa de comunismo?
Lo más malo que ha existido en la vida. De lo más malo que ha existido en la vida ha sido el comunismo. Porque realmente ninguno es comunista.
What do you mean by that? Ninguna
Lo que
es
hacen
comunista.
es enriquecerse y explotar al pueblo, es lo único que hacen.
¿Qué significa eso para ti? Como no hay ninguna comunista. Como que
No. Porque no hay. Eso no existe. El comunismo es la igualdad del hombre por el hombre. Aquí eso no existe. Aquí eso no existe. Todos ellos son los que tienen todo. Ellos tienen luz. Ellos tienen los mejores carros del año cristiano. Ellos tienen petróleo. Ellos tienen gasolina. Ellos tienen todo. Y el pueblo no tiene nada. Y las mayores bipimis son de ellos.
¿Y por qué piensa que gente defiende el comunismo cuando hemos visto que no funciona?
No funciona. El que defiende el comunismo, nada más que tiene que ser la familia Castro, o alguien que le tenga miedo, o alguien que vive del gobierno, que se enriquece de esa dictadura.
And right now in the United States, a lot of people think that communism and socialism is the way to go. What would be your message to them? Because they think capitalism has failed them. Mucha gente en los Estados Unidos ahora creen que comunismo y socialismo es la manera de donde deberíamos ir.
No.
¿Por qué?
Eso es lo peor.
¿Qué sería su mensaje a ellos?
Lo peor que existieran, lo peor que tú puedas hacer en la vida es pasar al socialismo, al comunismo, porque es la gran mierda. No existe el que te vea la miseria, a la obstinación, al hambre, a la hostigación, a todo. Fíjate que nada de lo que tú puedas, nada del salario, nada más te alcanza para comprar una botella de aceite. ¿Cómo tú crees que tú puedes vivir así? ¿Cómo tú puedes vivir con una libreta de razonamiento que nada más que te dan 3 libras de azúcar y una de sal? Y ya, y cada 15, cada 4, 6 meses, 7 años, te dan una posta de pollo o un huevo. El huevo no viene hace un año. Hace un año que no viene el huevo.
Imagínate. Año desde que no ha tomado un
huevo. El huevo tienes que comprarlo. El huevo tienes que comprarlo por la por la calle en las vivimos, pero el Estado, la libreta, ya no tienen nada. Yo no sé qué significa la libreta, porque ya no viene nada. La remesa que ustedes dan, la ayuda, nos las venden a nosotros después. La ayuda nunca viene al pueblo. Lo que tú traes nunca viene al pueblo. Esa gente que viene, que están trayendo toda esa ayuda, esa ayuda tú no la ves. Yo no sé dónde ellos la entregan, pero esa ayuda tú no la ves.
¿Y qué sería su mensaje a Donald Trump y Marco Rubio?
Donald Trump y Marco Rubio, estoy esperando por ustedes, por favor, para ver si podemos vivir como personas, vivir como ser humano, tener las primeras necesidades como vive un ser humano, porque estamos viviendo peor que los animales. Peor que los animales estamos viviendo.
¿Cree que sería bueno que los Estados Unidos ayudan?
Claro, por supuesto. Todo el mundo está esperando la intervención. La intervención, porque la gente piensa que la intervención, que van a matar a la gente, no. Ya ellos saben los puntos claves, que saben que hay el comité central, que hay el punto cero, que sabe, todo el mundo sabe dónde están los casos. Ellos saben dónde están los casos.
¿Qué es un buen sueldo aquí en Cuba?
¿Y este?
Ahí está.
¿Estás tirando foto?
Wow.
Ahí.
And film that lady, get a shot of her. Wow. And la última pregunta.
This lady had spawned out of nowhere and began spying on us. For instance, look at it. She comes into frame right here, and then she hides behind the lamppost, and then all of a sudden she starts filming us, and then when she goes to the other side of the lamppost, she then begins to act like she's on a phone call. However, she continues to point her camera towards our direction. The guy I'm interviewing then notices that she's filming us. He goes and confronts her, and she runs to the other side of the street. She then turns the corner, and my security guard follows her to see where she goes. And who does she meet up with? She meets up with the man who was following us inside of the hotel. And after we had confirmed that we were being followed by Cuban intelligence and their spies were spying on us, we hurried back up to our hotel room and made a plan to escape Cuba.
She makes her way through the woods to him, and then he goes, no, like saying, don't sit here. Boom, sits there. So they're together, 100%. Come back to the hotel, buddy's there. They're 100% watching us. Option 2 is, there's no more flights out today. They're 100% on to us.
So you think we gotta leave tomorrow morning?
If we're gonna deal with the pressure at one point, which I think we're going to anyways, we do it trying to leave early at the airport where there's public eyes. We're in Cuba, we're in Communism. So this is a different ballgame for all of us.
Think we can get a boat tonight?
I was thinking about making a call to see if we were to do that, how far would the U.S. Coast Guard need us to be? They're 1,000%. So good news and bad news is,
This is literally the North Korea of Latin America, and we have spies on us.
they're 100%. 100%. We're not paranoid. I'm 100% convinced. But if we grab our bags right now and make an escape, they're gonna say, hey, they just took off. They're gonna shut this whole bitch down looking for us.
And to make things even worse, Cuba was having their May Day march just outside our hotel in the morning, so all around the hotel, military and Cuba government was surrounding the hotel, protecting the streets for the march the next morning.
My thoughts. So tomorrow, they're gonna have the march for the May 1st march.
Yeah.
It's a big march. So it starts at 6. They're either going to come for us by 3 or 4.
Facts.
So we have to be out of here by then.
Yes.
And whether that's us bouncing around the city in a pair of 2 and one off on their own, and maybe I'll meet back up. But we have to distract them enough by the time it's our time to board on the airport at 8 a.m. They're too occupied doing this march thing.
We took a bit of a risky move and headed down to the lobby to act as if we had no idea they were spying on us and act very casual, so security puffed on some Cuban cigars, I drank some water, security chatted up with some of the people working at the hotel, and then we went back upstairs and barricaded ourselves into the hotel room for the night, and then at 4 a.m. we made our attempt to escape the hotel. Alright, 4 a.m. now, we're in the elevator, we're heading down to the bottom lobby, and we're making our way out. Right now, the people are gathering out on the streets.
We have one of the security guards down the bottom making sure that it's clear for us to walk out of the lobby right now. And now we're heading out, getting on a taxi and making our way to the airport as fast as possible. One of the security guards was stopped by someone at the hotel as she asked why we are leaving the hotel early, and she would not let us leave. They were stalling for some reason, and then when we did try to make it out to go get a taxi, the guy barely let us out the door, and then when we got out to get a taxi, they called us back in. We're running into some complications here, just trying to get out. They're asking why we're trying to leave the hotel early.
Immigration police.
And they took us into the back room of the hotel, and we had a meeting with a 2-star general who interrogated us for 10 to 15 minutes about why we're trying to leave Cuba, what was our purpose of our travels, what kind of questions we were asking the people on the streets, what kind of footage we got. The general then said we could go, and he said they would get us a taxi to the airport. However, we waited for 5 minutes and there was no taxi. We thought we were about to get set up, so we left the hotel and set off on foot to escape Cuba. As soon as we made it down to the hotel lobby, they had their guys down there. We had immigration, and they brought us in for an interview. Gabe, so what's the current circumstances that we got going on right now in Cuba? We're trying to find a taxi. We've left the hotel. We're a few miles out now. No taxis are anywhere. How are we getting out of Cuba?
So, number one, second we got downstairs, we had, what you want to call their undercover police, walking through the lobby, just playing it cool, acting like there's nothing. Once you and I came downstairs and you guys made your way out to the front, 2-star general came out of nowhere and he asked as politely as possible, but with firm action, like, hey, I need to sit down, we need to talk to you guys. And then he realized that he was pressing, so he's like, hey, could you just bring in your friend so we could talk? And I was like, oh, what's going on? And he goes, I would want to talk inside. That's when he came outside to the outside lobby. I was trying to just engage the conversation there, and he said, I would like to talk inside. We had our conversation. Now they let us leave, and now we're on foot by the university and the hospital. And we got about another 1.5 miles to the airport, 2 miles. So we're on foot. Hopefully we can get a taxi at some point if we don't get squeezed in before.
And there's no taxis out right now. That's a bit of a problem right now. The streets are empty.
Empty, and everybody's going the opposite direction.
By the grace of God, we found one taxi driver in all of Havana who agreed to take us to the airport. The only problem, it's a tricycle that only goes 10 miles per hour. All right, we got our taxi. All right, so our taxi to the airport. Not the taxi I thought we were gonna get into to make it to the airport. This is our taxi we have right now. It's the only option we had available. We're gonna try to find another car taxi because this is taking too long to get to the airport and our flight's gonna leave without us. And right now we currently have the entire government of Cuba onto us knowing that we're trying to leave the country. Now we weren't able to get another taxi. We've been in this taxi for the past hour or so. Sun came up, finally made it to the airport, and now this is our last stretch in order to get out of Cuba. They might press us one more time inside the airport, so we don't know exactly. We're not out of here for certain, for good. They might make one last push at the airport. They could either ask us some more questions or not let us board our flight. They do have all my camera gear inside the airport right now, so we have to get all of that. And everyone's on the know that we're trying to leave Cuba right now. We'll see if they let us board our commercial flight. We made it to the airport, and now I had to go get my camera gear that they had seized just 24 hours before. They questioned me for another 30 minutes. They then took one of my security guards, questioned him as well, and then they ended up letting us get onto our Oh my gosh. Muchas gracias. Gracias. Oh, we're making it onto the plane right now. I've never been so happy to make it onto a plane.
I got pulled up by 2 guys. They wanted to do the smooth approach, like, hey, what's going on? Why are you guys here? Why are you guys leaving so soon? You guys got here yesterday. After going back and forth, and I was done with the small talk already. I was like, bro, if something's gonna happen, let it happen already. And he's like, I'm like, listen, we had a 2-star general at our hotel at 5 in the morning. You guys are here now. We were pressed all day yesterday. What's up? And he's like, even the president knows that you guys are here.
The president of Communist Cuba knew that we were here.
He knows that we were here. Facts. They know. They've been watching us all day. They know that we're here. So.
You might not see 3 more happier men in the world right now.
Feels like Christmas morning. How are you?
Made it out. Oh my gosh.